Okay, we'll get started with Carson Hopkins. Thanks so much for being here.
Mhm.
So, Carson, before we get into hearing about your work with the Appalachian Youth Climate Coalition, can you just tell us about yourself, where you come from, and what you're studying at App, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I'm a second year student. I'm from right outside of Blacksburg, Virginia, so in the southwestern part, on the border of West Virginia and Virginia. I am majoring in sustainable development and I'm minoring in app studies, staying close to home. But yeah.
Is great. That is great. Thank you. So can we have talked a little bit in class about the Mountain Valley Pipeline? Can you tell us about some of the work that you are doing and have done with the Appalachian Youth Climate Coalition or even other groups on that issue?
Yeah, so one of AYCC's kind of ongoing and primary projects is working against Mountain Valley Pipeline with this kind of group called Appalachians Against Pipelines, which is just like kind of a larger name for the resistance against the pipeline. But we do a lot of work just like educating different communities along the pipeline and that are somehow affected by the pipeline. We do a lot of work educating youth and mobilizing youth. One of the cool things about AYCC is that it's like entirely non-hierarchical. And so if there are kids in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, who want to do something but don't really know how, they can just reach out and be like, hey, I'm interested in doing this. Can I have some resources or some help to start getting the ball rolling in my area? And that will be shared with them through other folks who are already mobilized, doing MVP stuff. But a lot of what AYCC is doing as a whole is supporting a direct action campaign that's going on against Mountain Valley Pipeline. And so that's people putting their bodies actually in the way of construction to stop construction from happening for months, years, days. It depends on like the certain event. But there have been different instances of all of those. So really just like getting kids out there, getting them educated on like what's going on in different tactics for resisting infrastructure build out in the specific instance of Mountain Valley Pipeline. Um, but yeah, there's some kind of campaigning stuff going on, talking to representatives, calling the governor, all of that kind of jazz. But that was a little bit more in the beginning, and folks have realized that that doesn't necessarily work as well anymore because those avenues have already been tried and politicians have shut everyone down. So now it's just kind of supporting people through the legal system in suing the pipeline and then also supporting the direct action campaign against the pipeline.
Okay, great. So when you talk about mobilizing youth, what does that look like on the ground? Are you having meetings going to schools, or how are you reaching youth?
Yeah, so some of it is just open meetings, just putting call out saying, hey, we're having the Zoom meeting, or there's like going to be a group of kids meeting up at this location to just like talk through things and kind of brainstorm different ideas as to what we can do and how we can kind of build community around this resistance movement. Um, some of it is just kind of putting up posters or banners, places saying, we don't like this pipeline, you should pay attention too. And that can kind of inspire people to do their own research and get involved in whatever capacity they feel most comfortable with. Um, and then sometimes it's just people reaching out saying, hey, I'm interested, I want to learn more, but I don't necessarily want to work with a certain group. Can I just have some resources? And then it's just like, hey, these are things that we've done in the past. Here are some like outlines of how we did them. Feel free to adapt them, use them however you want, but like have at it in your community.
Great. Okay. And let me ask you this. I read in that article where I saw you that you are a co-founder of that organization, right?
Uh, yeah, sure. I guess you could say that. I kind of feel weird saying that because it's like that title doesn't actually have anything associated with it. It's just like I was kind of around when AYCC came to fruition. Um,
Okay. I think you're
but
probably being too modest, but okay.
yeah, it doesn't
Um,
like give me any kind of position of power, any kind of authority within it. It's just that I was like there when AYCC was birthed. And so sometimes that title gets thrown around, which I'm like, that doesn't matter. Like, who cares?
Right,
But
especially with a non-hierarchical organization.
yeah,
Right.
but
Okay. Are you feeling optimistic about all of the delays that the resistance has caused in the project, or how are you feeling about it right now?
um, yeah, I'm kind of, I have to remain optimistic that MVP won't be finished. And so that's obviously always going to be my driving force, is that this project will never be done. Um, and I do think that they have really, really big obstacles ahead. The remaining work that they have to do is the hardest work that's left. All of their road crossings, all of their water crossings, and all of their steepest sections of pipe to lay is all they have left. And so they've intentionally left it for last because they don't know how to do it. And nor do they have the permits to do it because the government has said, listen, you can't do this.
Mhm.
And it also brings me a little bit of comfort that MVP really shot themselves in the foot by starting construction when they didn't actually have permission to finish. So that's
Yeah.
been an interesting game that they're playing, is they were never allowed to finish this pipeline from the point that they started. So they've kind of been like one step forward, two steps back from the beginning, just from how they started their own construction. Um, but with that being said, obviously I'm going to be devastated if there's ever gas flowing through that pipeline. I will be heartbroken, but I also will like understand how much came how much community was built and how many
Mhm.
relationships and how much just like love was fostered through the resistance of that pipeline, that I think that there's still so much gained. Even if we in the end lose the battle against Mountain Valley Pipeline, there's still this huge community that has like gained so many skills, really learned to love each other and work together, um, and is not just going to like lay down when Mountain Valley Pipeline, if it's finished, um, they are going to move on to whatever fight is next because they have those skills and they're passionate about it now. And it's not just once you start fighting an infrastructure project or development project, you can't just stop. You move on to the next one until
Mhm.
you have that like concrete success where the pipeline is stopped.
Sure, sure. And then I think something I read in that article, which you now said is kind of dated. Um, uh, what can you tell us about reaching across the aisle, about working with people that maybe on the face of things may not have agreed with you, but you have found some common ground? Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that process was like?
Yeah. So I think one of the more beautiful parts about um the communities that have been fostered through resistance against MVP specifically is like you'll walk into a room and you see people who you would never expect to be fighting a pipeline. And it's just these like stereotypical big mountain men who are like fifth generation farmers, deep like southern draw, did never go to college, maybe didn't finish high school, just like big family people. And they're there like supporting a direct action campaign and raising hell in the mountains, which is so cool to see. um and I think that that's kind of fostered through this connection with the land that people, specifically rural people in Appalachia, have. The government has never been there for the people of Appalachia, and so really all they have is the land in their community, and when that's threatened, people will throw down in order to like protect themselves and their homes. And so I think that when people disagree, especially with youth, it's an interesting conversation because it's this, there's the, I disagree with you because of political things, but I also disagree with you and don't trust you because you're a kid and you don't know what you're talking about. And so there's this interesting game you have to play of not being overly cocky and like having to prove yourself. But really just kind of explaining like, I am one of you. I grew up here too. I don't like this pipeline simply because like yes, it is contributing to climate change, but also because it has an incineration zone of a mile radius from where it is. If that pipeline blows, you, me, like our land, our water, it's all gone. Um uh it's just kind of destroying the local economy. It's bringing in people from all over the country to do the construction. It's not actually hiring locals and helping our local economy. It's helping the Motel 6 down the road, but that's just about it.
Mhm.
And so I think that it's a lot of reaching across the aisle at first, but after you make a few key points to a lot of locals, they'll be like, wait, I completely agree with you, because I see all of these Pennsylvania and Florida and Minnesota plates coming down here for pipeline construction when they promised local jobs and economic prosperity. And really all it's bringing is danger and outsiders coming in to stay for 3 months and do construction and then leave. Like, they're not actually bringing anything here locally. And it's not like that gas is staying local either. And so there's a lot of misinformation that's spewed by Mountain Valley Pipeline that kind of gets people on their side. And then once you kind of lay down the facts to people in those communities, the light bulb kind of flicks on, and it's it's not as hard as it seems to kind of pull people
Nice.
to the side of resisting the pipeline rather than supporting it.
Nice. Excellent. Okay, that is great. If other students are interested in getting involved in this issue, how would you suggest they go about doing that?
I think specifically because the pipeline isn't running through Boone itself, it's an interesting there are a lot of ways to get involved, but it's kind of it's a lot different than a lot of the ways that I've described here. And
Mhm.
so I think one of the best ways to do that would honestly be like talking to me and kind of a few other students who are involved in the resistance from afar. Um, Feel free to reach out to Appalachians Against Pipelines or Appalachian Youth Climate Coalition. If you Google either of those, like their social medias and all of that will come up where you can find their contact information. But also like feel free to reach out to me at my email. And can you just put that somewhere if people want to reach out?
Let's see
Maybe.
here.
Yeah, it's
I'll
Hopkins
share my
CA at App State.
screen,
But
or I'll just take, well, I'll your email, right? Your App
yeah,
State email.
my App
Okay.
State email is perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. We'll do that. Sure.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. I think that is all I have right now, but I really appreciate the work you're doing and
Yeah.
also sharing with us a snapshot of what it's like to really be working in a citizen organization as part of our democracy. And thanks for working against climate change and this pipeline, and really appreciate it.
Yeah. Come join us.
Okay, awesome. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.